I think that being in Nevada,
Yes.
we are a snowbird state. People
Yes.
love to come here during the winter months.
And leave during the summer. Yes.
The 118-degree weather is not awesome. But
awesome.
we are here in the summer. We are here in the winter. And then we have people that come in the winter because it's too cold where they're coming from.
Perfect.
So what considerations do those snowbirds, as we'll call them, need to have? First, we need to figure out where they live.
Right.
Where are you actually a resident?
Where are you domiciled? Which is a legal term. It just means where do you feel that you call home, I guess is a way to say it. So where do you feel you call home, and where do you plan on calling home?
Where do you intend?
Intend.
Yes.
Yes.
And there are different parameters for the IRS, for law, everything has a different parameter of, are you intending to live there? How long have you lived there? And we're not going to go into the specifics of that, but there are, for every institution, entity has their own thing of what
they're going to look at to say, oh, the intention was there because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Yep.
But let's say that we have snowbirds that are in between states. Will their documents work here?
So long as they were properly done in the state that wherever the trust was made, then yes. States have reciprocity for documents. They say, okay, if it was done according to the statute of the state that it was done in, then we'll consider it a valid trust in our state.
Yeah, it's validly executed, then it'll be valid in this. And if it's not, let's say it doesn't meet the regulations, requirements, and laws of the state of Nevada, Nevada will say, if you can have an attorney attest to the validity of it in its own state, we'll adhere to it.
Yep.
So as long as you, and again, which is why we always recommend, if you do something online, at least just have an attorney look at it, because you do want to make sure it is legally binding. And the second side of that is, if you intend on being somewhere for an extended period of time, powers of attorney are state specific. And so I usually don't have people redo them when they're snowbirds, because they invalidate the previous one unless you can limit it. And so we'll sometimes do that. We'll have limited powers of attorney that say only while I'm in the state, or
why I'm living in Nevada for this period.
Right.
This is the operative power of attorney.
Yes.
After that period of time,
it reverts back to your resident state.
Right.
Yes. And the reason that we do that is because since powers of attorney are state specific, we want to make sure that even though you have one from another state, not all institutions have to actually adhere to it if you're in the state of Nevada. So a Nevada institution could say, sorry, I'm not taking your financial power of attorney because it doesn't meet Nevada law. So we always say, do it as a just in case, but don't get rid of your old one, because you're still going to need it when you go back home.
Now that's a financial power of attorney. What about a healthcare power of attorney? They're very state specific as well.
They are. And so when we've talked about this before, if the hospital lets you do it, then they let you do it. Doesn't matter what you have. Right. But ideally, if you can have one, and there's a lot, right? You have a POST, the physician order regarding life-sustaining treatment. You have a DNR, do not resuscitate order. You have an advanced directive. You have a medical power of attorney. You have all of these things. And they all essentially just need to say the same thing. Because if they all say the same thing in terms of the people and what your desires are, it doesn't matter what anyone's using.
Right.
The problem becomes when you fill out one way and you fill out something else a different way.
Right. So your documents contradict.
Yes. Not only if it's not state specific, but even if we talk about a POST and that's generated from a physician.
Right.
If that doesn't correlate to what your power of attorney says, they're going to default to whatever is the last thing done. Right. Which could or could not be correct, or maybe you didn't understand what you were doing. Right. So we always ask, if you have these documents, make sure that they just all align. If that's the case, then it doesn't matter what you're using, it'll work because...
Right. Because they all say the same thing. Right. These are the people I want to make the decision for me. These are the decisions I want made.
Right.
Right.
And so if we kind of transition, so that's snowbirds that are going back and forth, but sometimes what happens is people retire and they think, I don't want to deal with a cold at all.
Correct.
So I'm going to just move to Las Vegas, not Reno, because it's cold up there. But I'm going to move to Las Vegas. It's warm there year round, blistering hot in the summer, but warm year round-ish.
There's stuff to do.
There's stuff to do. Yep.
Always activities.
So you have a person from New York, you have a person from Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin,
Iowa.
Montana, Iowa, whatever, colder states. They're like, I'm just going to make Nevada my home, or I'm going to make Las Vegas my home.
Right.
It used to be that in order to name a guardian, you had to name somebody that lived in the state. And this was very difficult for people like Snowbirds because they're leaving their family.
Right.
They raise their family in Iowa, Ohio, Nebraska, Michigan, wherever. And now they're like, I want out of this cold weather, I'm moving to Las Vegas by myself or with my significant other.
Right.
Or if it's like us, we just took our parents with us.
Right. Took our parents with us.
But for those that didn't and they moved alone and their kids are somewhere else, it used to be that Snowbirds were getting taken advantage of by for-profit agencies because they didn't have somebody local to be their guardian.
And just to clarify, a guardianship is when somebody applies to the court and says, this person's unable to care for themselves, whether it's their health or their finances, and they need somebody to assist them. They need somebody to help them do it, and I want to be named their guardian. And the court orders them to be their guardian.
Right. And if anyone's ever seen I Care a Lot, it's on Netflix, it was very loosely based on a woman here in Nevada that was doing these things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as crazy as the movie was, but it was happening a lot. You would have for-profit agencies that saw this elderly person that didn't have anyone here, so they would apply to be the guardian. They would get it and then sell everything, put them to a home, and you had no idea because you weren't here.
Right.
Now the laws changed, thankfully, to where you can have an out-of-state guardian. Now they have to relate with someone in state for service, so they have to have somebody that's a resident.
Which could be an attorney.
Which could be an attorney. It could be somebody that lives here.
Right.
And the only job of that resident agent is to accept service. So the guardian can be the guardian. They just have to relate with somebody in the state for service. Right. So now that that's changed, it's nice because you can have a child in a different state become the guardian and not have to worry about a for-profit agency stepping in. And thankfully, the state of Nevada has a guardian registration that you can actually file with the Secretary of State. So should you need a guardian, it's already on there listed who you want it to be so that you don't have this thing happening where a for-profit agency is coming in to take care of mom.
Right. Or a neighbor. A neighbor sees that there's an elderly person living in the neighborhood. No one comes and checks on them. Guess what? I could be their guardian.
I can befriend them.
I can befriend them. Oh, they have money in their account. I can wipe it. So you can have an out-of-state person. You can tell people, set it up beforehand. I don't need a guardian now, but if I ever do, I want it to be these people, and they can be out of state.
Exactly.
Which is great. The other way to really, to avoid the guardianship conversation totally is to have the power of attorneys we talked about. While you're able to, you can create a power of attorney, both for financial and healthcare, saying who you want to be your agent, who you want to have the power to act on your behalf if you're unable to. And you could set that up beforehand, and then that would,
in most cases, avoid guardianship altogether.
Which would be ideal.
Right. So we do have snowbirds a lot here in Nevada.
Yes.
And there are considerations that differ from people that actually just reside here, which we've already talked about. But if you are a snowbird, make sure you talk to your estate planning attorney in your state, and then also speak with somebody in the state in which you frequent your winter months to make sure that your documents align and to make sure that they are in place in case something happens to you.
That kind of brings up another point. So if you do decide to move here or do decide to stay here, will your trust from a different state be valid? We talked about that at the beginning. It should be, as long as it was properly executed. But how long should you live here before you get your trust redone for the state of Nevada? Because now you want it to be your domicile.
Well, it depends on what the trust says. Because if the trust says that the trustee has the ability to pick the jurisdiction in which it's administered, I have to read the entire thing, but it's probably okay if you leave it. But ideally, we want it to be in Nevada. If your intent is to live here indefinitely, we'd like to just restate it so that it's complying with Nevada laws and making sure that the jurisdiction is in Nevada, because we don't want to we don't want it to be pulled into another jurisdiction, and we don't want to force it into another jurisdiction based on the language of the trust. So if you intend on staying here, it's best just to have it looked at to see if anything needs to be changed. But in most cases, your trust will still function if you create it in another state. And Nevada is trust friendly. We're
Right.
very trust friendly. So it's not uncommon for people from out of state to create Nevada trusts, especially and particularly when we're talking about asset protection trusts or Nevada specific trusts. They're very friendly. Our limitations on look back is a 2-year look back period for creditors. So people love Nevada trusts. And you'll see that in the news just recently.
Right.
About fighting and whether it's public and all of this stuff. But we have a lot of people that don't reside here that have Nevada trusts because of the trust laws.
Right. And then, so what kind of things are they looking at? How can it be a Nevada trust if we don't live here? You just have to have a trustee that's from the state of Nevada?
Right. You have to have a resident trustee.
And then they could have a Nevada trust.
And then you can have a Nevada trust. And there are trust companies that you can hire to be that resident trustee. And again, depending on the particular trust, there are other parameters, but the majority, if you're out of state, you should have a resident trustee.
Another thing with the Snowbirds is a lot of times they'll have their home back wherever they're from, somewhere in the Midwest or somewhere where it's cold, and then they buy a condo out here. They buy a different house where they have houses in both locations. And so it's really important for them to put both of these homes in the trust, because if they just have them in their individual names and they pass away, they're going to go through probate in both states.
Yeah, so real property subjects your estate to probate in every state in which that real property is held.
Correct.
Not only that, but what a lot of people forget about are timeshares.
Oh, yes. Great.
Timeshares. So timeshares can be contract-based, where it's just a contract, or it can be deed-based. And most of them, well, I guess I don't know most of them. Most of them I've seen are deed-based, which means there's an actual recording of your 1/380th% of this timeshare interest that's recorded. And Nevada is very timeshare heavy, just like Florida is. There's lots of timeshare companies here where we record the deeds here. So oftentimes we'll have to probate timeshare interests because it's considered real property. So any of you that have timeshares, you need to think about, is that a contract or is it a deed? And if it's a deed, that needs to be put into a trust or have some other designation on it, because timeshares are a nightmare.
Yes.
They can be lovely to use. They are a nightmare if you don't plan on them correctly, because if it is real property, it is in someone else's name. It has to be probated in which the state in which that deed is recorded. And if you know the resale value of a timeshare, it's not always great. But let's say it's something that the kids actually want. They want to continue going to this place and using this.
They have fond memories.
They want to keep it in the family.
Right.
Their timeshare interest is probably worth X, and they're going to pay double or triple that to go through probate just to get that interest into their names because it wasn't taken care of previous. So we'll talk about real property of houses or condos, but you also have to remember the timeshare aspect of anywhere, whether it's Hawaii or Florida, wherever that timeshare deed is recorded, you're going to have to put that into your trust if you want to avoid probate in that state.
Or some other mechanism to avoid payable upon death or transfer upon death designations or joint tenants.
Yes, and we could go on timeshare rant for a long time.
For a long time.
If you have timeshares, make sure you talk to somebody about that, because that's really important.
Make sure it's part of your estate plan.
Right.